I used to think grief was the worst part. But grief ends. Or at least fades. What no one warns you about is doubt, the kind that shows up 20 years late and makes you question everything you survived. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm 29. An architect. A widow. An orphan. And until recently, I was a loyal niece. When people ask about my childhood, I usually say it was fine. Not happy. Not tragic. Just quiet. But that's not really true. My mom was murdered when I was 9. The official story? A home invasion gone wrong. Jewelry missing. Police sketch of a possible intruder. But no arrests. No leads. Just silence. The kind of story small towns forget because they want to forget. My mother's brother, Uncle George, took me in. Everyone called him a hero. The bachelor who left his Manhattan life to raise his dead sister's daughter. He gave up a lot for you, people used to whisper. You're lucky to have him. And I believed that. I needed to believe that. Because I had no one else. No father. No grandparents. Just George, with his careful voice, pressed shirts, and permanent under-eye shadows. He never talked about Mom. Not once. And for years. I didn't ask. I stayed with him until I was 18. Got into college. Studied architecture. Tried to build a future from ruins. But every Thanksgiving? Christmas? Spring break? I came home. To him. He never remarried. Never moved. Same house. Same chair. Same eerie calm. If you had asked me 6 months ago if I trusted George, I would have said, more than anyone. He raised me. Paid for my braces. Drove 6 hours to watch my thesis presentation. But you know what they say about loyalty? Sometimes it's just a very elegant kind of blindness. It started with a box. A month after George had a mild stroke, I came back to the house to help sort his files. He just moved into assisted living and the place was frozen in time, like it had been waiting for someone to finally notice. The attic was hotter than hell. Dusty. Boxes stacked like relics. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just sorting through years of receipts and old manuals. Then I found it. An old cedar chest. Locked. The smell hit first: aged wood, a trace of perfume, and something sour. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside, a stack of yellowed papers. One small silver locket. And a letter. Unopened. Addressed to me. Dated 1 week after my mother's death. I don't remember breathing as I opened it. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to tell you everything. But you need to know. George isn't who he seems. And if he's raising you, be careful. I laughed at first. That dry, confused laugh when something doesn't fit. Be careful. Of George? But that sentence hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because it unlocked something. Or maybe it cracked something. You ever read something so shocking you start remembering things differently? Because I did. Like how there were no signs of forced entry that night. Like how Mom had changed her will 3 weeks before she died, and suddenly everything went to George, not me. Like how he always said he temporarily put the house and accounts in his name. But somehow, they never came back to me. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. Instead, I sat in my childhood bedroom, staring at that letter, rereading it like maybe I'd imagined it. And then I did something I never thought I would. I started asking questions. That's when the doorbell rang. Late. Too late. I went downstairs, heart racing. On the doorstep was a man in a faded blue uniform. He didn't smile. Hi. I'm with the county records office. You made a request about the 2004 homicide file, right? I nodded slowly. He handed me a file. Thin. Then said. Except, it's not complete. It's missing something. The toxicology. My throat tightened. He paused, looked me in the eye. Call this number. She was the coroner on duty back then. She remembers your mom. And just like that, I wasn't an orphan anymore. I was an open case. Would you trust the man who raised you if the only person who ever warned you about him was already dead? The letter was still warm from my hands. But the ink? It bled. Like someone had cried while writing it. I called the number the next morning. And when the coroner picked up, the first thing she said was, I was wondering when you'd find me. They always say memory lies. But trauma doesn't forget, it just waits. And once I opened that door, nothing felt safe again. Not the walls I grew up in. Not the man who tucked me in for 10 years. The retired coroner's name was Ruth. Her voice was raspy, like she smoked too much or cried too long. She didn't ask how I found her. She didn't waste time. I'm not supposed to talk about the case, she said. But I kept notes. I kept something. She paused. I could hear papers shifting in the background. Then she said a name. One I hadn't expected. Your mother's chart listed suvecuronium. Muscle relaxant. High dose. Administered in the week before she died. I blinked. That's not something used in psychiatry, she added. Definitely not for depression. It's paralyzing. Usually surgical. I didn't know what to say. My mouth went dry. And get this, she continued. It was picked up under George's name, a week before she died. But no record of her seeing a doctor. It never added up. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, same place I used to color while George made toast. Only now I saw it differently. The silence. The tension in the walls. How he always said Mom was not well that last year. How he whispered when he thought I couldn't hear, she's unraveling. But what if she wasn't? What if someone was making her unravel? That's when I remembered the storage unit. It was technically in George's name, but I'd helped him sort through boxes there a few years ago when he said he wanted to declutter. Old furniture. Paperwork. Stuff from when Mom died. Back then, I hadn't thought twice about what he kept and what he threw out. But now I needed answers. I drove out the next morning. Unit 137. Dim. Dusty. Reeking of mildew and something sour like old plastic and rot. The first few boxes were junk, holiday decorations, broken lamps, receipts from the early 2000s. But in the back, under a moth-eaten sheet, I found a crate labeled in thick black marker. Ella, private. My mom's name. All caps. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd vomit. Inside, a jewelry box with pieces I'd never seen. A torn photo of Mom with a man whose face was scribbled out in pen. And a manila envelope marked. Draft new will. The air left my lungs. I flipped through the pages. The beneficiary listed? Not George. It said, Alexandra Hartley, daughter. Primary. And the cosigner? A name I didn't recognize at first, Lucas Graham. But then I remembered the story I was told as a child. A man who left before I was born. A friend of Mom's. Too unstable. Unreliable. That's what George said. But now I had questions. Was he my father? I took the will to a friend of Mom's, Miranda, an old neighbor turned lawyer who'd once told me, if you ever need help understanding what happened, come find me. She looked at the documents. Her face drained. I thought she submitted this, she whispered. We worked on it together. Your mom was planning to leave. Take you. She said she finally had proof of what George was doing. The cameras. The passwords. Even his emails. I stared at her. What cameras? I asked. Miranda looked sick. She found one in her bedroom vent, she said quietly. And 2 more in the hallway and bathroom. She was going to take them to the police, but then she changed her mind. Said she needed to wait. That George would panic if she moved too fast. I gripped the table. Did the police ever find the footage? Miranda shook her head. They said there wasn't any. That the cameras were never turned on. But something in me twisted because I remembered something else. When I was 11, I came home early from a field trip. George was in my mom's room. The closet door was open. He didn't hear me at first. And when he did, he slammed the laptop shut. That night, I went back to the house. I opened the utility closet. The one George never let me touch. Behind the paint cans and rusty screwdrivers was a lockbox. Inside, dozens of mini cassettes. Labeled by date. From 2003 to 2005. I played one. It opened with static. Then, Mom. On the phone. I'm scared, she whispered. He's watching me sleep. Just standing there. Not saying anything. Last night, I woke up and he was smiling. I had to pause. I couldn't breathe. I looked around the room. The walls. The corners. I wasn't sure what scared me more. That she said it. Or that no one listened. You ever wonder how many warnings you missed just because you were too young to understand them? The cassette clicked to the next track. And this time I heard his voice. Soft. Calculating. Ella, if you leave me, I'll make sure she doesn't remember you. I took the tapes, the will, and the letter. Put them in a folder. And booked a meeting with the DA. There's a moment when everything you knew cracks open. Not with a bang, but a breath. A single second where your body goes cold, your brain goes quiet, and you realize you've been living someone else's lie. The DA didn't laugh. Didn't scoff. Didn't say I was being paranoid. Instead, he listened. To the story. To the timeline. To the tape of my mother whispering into the phone. He stands there. All night. And I don't know what he's waiting for. Then he leaned back and said 5 words I'll never forget. We need a handwriting expert. Turns out, that forged guardianship form? The one George submitted after Mom's death, the one that gave him control of her house, her accounts, me? It wasn't just a signature mismatch. It was a full fabrication. No witness. No legal backing. He filed it through a friend at the records office, then used it to lock down everything my mom had ever owned. Even my name. The investigator looked me straight in the eye and said, legally? He shouldn't have had custody. Not a dime. Not the house. Not you. I called Miranda again. I needed more than a lawyer. I needed an anchor. I don't understand, I said. How did no one catch this? How did he pull this off? She sighed. Because he didn't make waves. He kept you fed. In school. Out of trouble. The courts didn't ask questions because you weren't screaming. And he knew that. And the worst part? She was right. I never screamed. I said thank you. I said please. I stayed quiet. Grateful. Because I thought being rescued meant I had to earn it. The next few weeks blurred. Meetings. Paperwork. A full forensic audit. I gave the DA access to the tapes. The will. The letter. Even the security footage I found, low quality, grainy, but enough to show George entering Mom's room in the middle of the night. Multiple times. Just watching. Then something else surfaced. A sealed envelope inside a folder marked Estate Holdings. I wouldn't have even found it if I hadn't dropped the folder by accident. It slid out and landed on the floor. Inside, a copy of the real life insurance policy, updated 3 days before my mother died. And guess what? The original beneficiary wasn't George. It was me. But a week after the funeral, the paperwork was amended. Different handwriting. No official stamp. I ran it through the analyst. Yeah, he said. That's a forgery. You'd think I'd feel anger. But no. What I felt was worse. Grief. All over again. Like my mom had just died yesterday. But this time she was screaming and no one came. I called Ruth, the coroner, and asked her why she never pushed the case. Her voice cracked. Because I did. 4 months. But I was told to stop. That it was closed. That the girl you was safe. And George had connections. People liked him. She hesitated. And he scared me, she added. That's the truth. He scared me. You probably think I'm being dramatic. Maybe I am. But let me ask you something. What would you do if the man who raised you, the only person left after your mother's death, had planned it all? Would you cry? Scream? Run? I didn't do any of that. I planned a party. George's 60th birthday was coming up. He wasn't well, the stroke had made him slower, more forgetful. But he was still smug. Still playing the grieving hero who sacrificed everything. I sent out the invites. Old friends. Neighbors. Colleagues. People who told me for years how lucky I was to have him. How incredible he was. How Ella would be proud. I rented a hall. Catered dinner. Hired a photographer. And at the end of the night, I asked for 5 minutes on the mic. I stood at the podium. Held up a photo of me and my mom. Smiling. On the back porch. 1 month before she died. I used to believe, I said, that my mom's death was the end of our story. I paused. But I was wrong. Behind me, the screen flickered to life. The slideshow began. A scan of the letter. Her handwriting. The fake guardianship form. The toxicology report. A video clip, grainy, time-stamped of George standing in Mom's bedroom at 2:14 a.m. Just watching. The room went silent. George stood up. Pale. Shaking. This is slander, he hissed. These are lies. I turned to him calm. I submitted everything to the DA last week, I said. They're watching this right now. He bolted. Made it 5 steps before 2 plainclothes officers met him at the exit. I don't know what you would have done, but I threw him a birthday party with a guest list of ghosts. I left his slice of cake untouched. On the plate, I'd written his name in red icing. By the end of the night, it had melted. Like blood and sugar. The next morning, I got a call from the DA. Alex, he said. We found something else. And it's big. Grief is a scream. Justice is a whisper. But betrayal? It echoes even in silence. Even when they're behind bars and you're holding the keys to the house they stole from you. The call from the DA came before sunrise. He sounded calm. Too calm. Alex, he said. There's another box. One we didn't know existed. We found it in a private storage unit tied to George's business account. I sat up in bed, heart thudding. What's in it? His paws told me everything. We're still cataloging, but there are recordings. Financial documents. And what looks like surveillance logs. I didn't even know what to say. He continued. We also found something else. A letter. Not addressed to you. Addressed to your mother. Dated 2 months before her death. I whispered, from who? He said the name like a bullet. Lucas Graham. My real father. I drove straight to the DA's office. They didn't let me touch the evidence yet, it had to be formally processed, but they showed me copies. The letter was short. Just 1 page. Typed. Neat. Ella. If you're really going through with this, I want you to know I support you. I don't trust George. I never have. I'll be in touch next week with the signed will. I want our daughter to be safe. Our daughter. My throat tightened around those 2 words. He knew me. He claimed me. And still, he disappeared. I asked the DA if Lucas was alive. Another long pause. He was. He filed a claim in '06, tried to contest the estate transfer to George. But he dropped it. Disappeared. Never showed up to court. I asked why. They pulled up a scan of the case file. There was a note. Handwritten and signed. Lucas Graham found unresponsive in his apartment. No foul play suspected. Closed. That was it. Just closed. No autopsy. No follow-up. No family listed. I sat there staring at the paper, feeling like someone had erased me from both ends. You ever feel like your whole life was built on paperwork lies? Because I do. Every photo in George's house cropped. Every story I was told edited. Even my name was built on omission. And now that I finally had the house back, it didn't feel like mine. I walked through the rooms that weekend. The kitchen still smelled like his cheap instant coffee. The attic still had his old records stacked with care. The vents where he had cameras were still untouched. I left them there. Like scars. Like reminders. I don't know what healing looks like. But I know it doesn't look like repainting the walls and pretending it was never real. People started calling. Old family friends. Neighbors. Even some of George's colleagues. Some were apologetic. Some were defensive. Some tried to pretend they always had a weird feeling. But none of them had done a damn thing when I was 9 years old, staring at a coffin while the man who put my mom in it held my hand. I went back to Miranda's office. We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked me the question I'd been avoiding. Do you want to file for retroactive guardianship fraud? Push for full asset recovery? We can freeze every account he ever touched. I hesitated. Because part of me didn't want his money. I wanted time back. I wanted my mom to braid my hair again. I wanted someone to walk me down the aisle when I married Nate. But Nate's gone. Cancer. 4 years ago. And now so is George. Not legally yet, but emotionally? Spiritually? Dead. So I said yes. We filed the papers. And something strange happened. People began rewriting the past in real time. Suddenly, everyone remembered things differently. I thought George was a little intense. I always found him possessive of your mom. I wondered why he never let you talk about her. Funny how the truth only shows up once you shine a spotlight on it. You ever watch someone pretend to be your ally after they abandoned you? Because that week I got a Facebook message from George's old coworker, a woman I used to call Aunt Liz. She said, "We all make mistakes. He loved you the best way he could." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back one line. He loved control. Not me. Blocked her. And that became my new ritual. Blocking. Deleting. Removing names from emergency contacts, financial accounts, even my phone. I created a new bank account. And my mother's maiden name. Set up a password. Security question. What did she whisper? Answer, be careful. I used to think survival meant staying quiet. Now I know silence only protects the wrong people. I opened the fridge one night and found it there, the locket from Mom's cedar chest. Placed right next to the milk. I hadn't moved it. I hadn't even unpacked it. The next morning I checked the hallway camera. Someone had been in the house. And they left the back door slightly open. You think you're done. You think once the secrets are out, once the charges are filed, once the locks are changed, you're safe. But monsters don't need keys. Especially the ones that raised you. The back door was open by less than 2 inches. But that was enough. Enough to feel the air shift when I stepped into the kitchen. Enough to smell it, that faint, stale scent of his cologne. Like old money and mold. I checked every room. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. But things were moved. The towel on the bathroom hook? Twisted the opposite way. A mug I never use? Sitting on the counter. My favorite sweater, the one Mom gave me before she died, was no longer in the drawer. It was draped across the bed. Folded. Like someone wanted me to know. I've been here. And I still know you. I checked the hallway camera. The footage started at 3:08 a.m. A tall figure. Slouched. Moving slowly. I couldn't see the face, hoodie pulled low. But I didn't need to. You ever feel it in your spine? When a shadow is familiar? George. Somehow he was out. Maybe bail. Maybe a mistake. Maybe someone forgot to click the right box. I called the DA. No answer. Left a message. George was in the house. I have video. What's going on? Then I called Miranda. She picked up immediately. Stay with me, she said. Tonight. I'll call in a few favors. I packed a small bag. Laptop. Mom's letter. The locket. I locked every door, double-checked every window. As I was leaving, I saw something under the front doormat. A VHS tape. No label. Who even uses VHS anymore? Miranda still had an old player in her office, left over from a time when people archived depositions and crime scene walkthroughs on physical film. We plugged it in. It opened with static. Then, my mother, standing in the living room, nervous, holding something. She looked younger, tired, but alive. If anything happens to me, she said, staring directly into the camera. George did it. He's been recording me, threatening me. I think he's drugging me. I'm going to the lawyer tomorrow. I've hidden copies of everything. She held up a flash drive. I'm leaving this in the safe deposit box. The one Alex knows about. She paused. Tell her I'm sorry. I wanted to get away sooner. I just didn't know how. The tape cut to black. We sat there in stunned silence. Miranda put her hand over mine. That's enough, she said. This changes everything. The next morning, I took the tape and went straight to the courthouse. I demanded a restraining order. Filed an emergency request for remand. George was out on medical bail, a technicality. But the judge watched the tape in silence. Then signed the order without saying a word. George would be back in custody within 24 hours. But he got to me first. That night, I came home. Miranda insisted I stay at her place again, and there he was. Sitting on the front steps. Hands folded. Weak. Pale. Shaking. He didn't even flinch when I pulled out my phone. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. I wanted to explain. I stayed 10 feet back. You drugged her, I said. You watched her sleep. You lied to the police. You took everything. He nodded. Like he wasn't denying it. I loved her, he said. But she was going to leave. And I couldn't let her take you. I stared at him frozen. You weren't mine, Alex, he said softly. But you felt like mine. And I knew, if she left, I'd be alone again. You ever hear a confession that sounds more like a plea? Because that's what it felt like. Not a defense. Not regret. Just loneliness. Weaponized. He stood up. Reached into his pocket. I stepped back, heart racing. But all he pulled out was a key. Old. Rusted. He held it out. This opens the lockbox in the attic, he said. The one I swore didn't exist. Then he turned. Walked down the street. Slow. Limping. Like he had all the time in the world. I didn't follow. I went straight inside. Into the attic. It took me 10 minutes to find it. Behind a loose panel in the floorboards, a black box. Combination lock. The key fit. Inside. A flash drive. A letter. And a photo. Of me. And my mother. At a park I don't remember. She's holding me. Smiling. He's in the background. Watching. The letter was dated 1 day before her death. He knows I'm leaving. He said he'll make sure no one believes me. But Alex will know. One day. And when she does, I hope she doesn't hate me for staying as long as I did. You probably think I should have screamed at him. Or hit him. But I didn't. Because what do you do with a ghost who confesses while he's still alive? The last line of the letter was smudged, like someone had cried while writing it. The ink ran across the word daughter. I turned on the flash drive. Inside was a folder labeled. Not just me. People think the truth sets you free. But the truth just changes the kind of prison you live in. Before I was trapped in a lie. Now I'm trapped in knowing too much. The folder on the flash drive had 43 files. Photos. PDFs, audio clips, all labeled with names I didn't recognize at first. But then I realized they were women, clients, coworkers, neighbors, from George's life before me, before my mother. Each one had something in common. A police report, a drop complaint, a restraining order that expired, or missing persons bulletin. One was from 1992. A woman named Carla Marks. She'd filed harassment charges. Said George had followed her, left notes on her windshield, taken photos of her through her window. The case was dismissed. Lack of evidence. Another file included scanned emails, obsessive, repetitive, begging her to come back. You can't just replace a family, he wrote. That was the phrase I'd seen before. In one of the tapes. He'd said it to my mother. Softly. After she told him she was leaving. You can't just replace a family. But that's exactly what he tried to do. Over and over. And I had been his longest illusion. I turned over everything to the DA. They froze his remaining accounts. New charges were filed: stalking, harassment, forgery, coercive control, and 2 potential cases of suspicious death pending reinvestigation. The local news picked up the story. It was on TV the next night. My name was never mentioned, just a relative of the accused. But people knew. They always know. My inbox exploded. Some messages were kind. Some were not. You're just bitter. You're exaggerating. He raised you. If he was so bad, why'd you wait so long? You ever be re-traumatized by strangers? As I was. Every day. In comment sections. In emails. In the pauses between texts from people who still hadn't said a single word to me in person. I stopped answering calls. Turned off notifications. Let voicemail take the brunt of it. Even Miranda, who'd been with me through every step, started using a quieter tone. People are going to push back, she warned. They don't want to believe the good uncle is a monster. It's easier to pretend he's just misunderstood. I nodded, but inside I was already burning it all down. You want to know what finally broke me? A message from George's sister, a woman who hadn't spoken to me in a decade. She wrote, "He's not well. He doesn't remember everything. He's sick, Alex. Let him die with dignity." I stared at it, then typed back, "My mother didn't get to die with dignity. She died with his hands around her life." Blocked. That became my ritual. Again. But this time it wasn't grief-driven. It was defiance. Control. I changed my number. Deleted the family thread. Removed George's last name from every legal record tied to mine. Started using Hartley again. My mother's name. The name she wanted me to carry. I visited the cemetery for the first time in years. The headstone was simple. Ella Hartley, 1974 to 2004. Loved fiercely. Gone too soon. I sat there for over an hour. Didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just held the flash drive in my hand. I whispered, "It wasn't just you." And left the drive under a stone by her name. Not for anyone else. Just for her. You ever lose your family twice? Once to death. Once to truth? 'Cause that's what this felt like. A second funeral. But this time I was burying the fantasy. The one where George was just lonely. Just sad. Just misunderstood. He wasn't. He was deliberate. Calculated. Dangerous. And now exposed. They set the sentencing date for the following month. George's lawyer requested a private hearing. The DA refused. It would be public. Open. And I would be there. People keep asking if I feel better now. Like justice is some kind of reward. But no one tells you that justice still feels like loss. I walked past a mirror that day. For the first time since all of it began. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Not because she was broken. Because she looked free. The night before sentencing I got a package. No return address. Just a note inside. For everything you've learned. But here's what you still don't know. Closure isn't a door that slams shut. It's a hallway you keep walking, lights flickering behind you. Uncertain what's ahead. And still you move forward. Because going back isn't an option anymore. The package was small. Plain. Brown. No return address. Inside. One envelope and one item. The envelope held a photo. My mother. Pregnant. Sitting at a kitchen table. Next to her, a man I now recognized. Lucas Graham. He was holding her hand. Smiling in that quiet, tired way people do when they've seen too much but still hope for better. I flipped it over. Taken 2 weeks before she told George. No signature. Just that. The item in the box? A key. Tiny. Brass. Engraved with a number. 8162B. It took me 2 days to figure out what it opened. A safe deposit box at a local credit union. Registered under my mother's name. No one had touched it in 20 years. The banker opened it slowly, glancing at the paperwork I'd filed with the court. Inside was a blue velvet pouch and a single sheet of paper. The pouch held jewelry I hadn't seen since I was a child. Her wedding ring, a charm bracelet with my initials, a pair of pearl earrings. The paper, an updated will. Signed. Witnessed. Legal. It named me sole heir. It revoked any previous financial access George had. It named Lucas as co-guardian. And it was dated 3 days before she died. I stood there for a long time holding that paper. Not because it changed anything, but because it proved I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the control, the manipulation, the silence that grew around me like a shell. She had tried to save me. She had prepared for the worst. And George had buried that too. At the sentencing I wore her earrings. The courtroom was cold. George looked smaller. Older. But I didn't mistake that for innocence anymore. Just erosion. He didn't look at me once. The judge read the charges. Forgery. Coercion. Fraud. Tampering. And one ongoing investigation related to suspicious death. He got 22 years. No parole for at least 15. I walked out without saying a word. Not to him. Not to his lawyer. Not to the crowd waiting for statements. I didn't owe anyone peace. I owed myself safety. It's been 3 months now. I still live in the house. I painted the walls a warm, soft white. Replaced the attic door with sealed drywall. Burned the last of the tapes. The locket stays on my nightstand. The ring too small for my hand now sits on a chain around my neck. People ask if I'll ever forgive him. Here's my answer. I don't need to forgive what I survived. I need to live despite it. You don't get to rewrite your childhood. But you can reclaim the chapters they tried to tear out. I left the final box, the one with Mom's jewelry, at her grave. Open so the wind could touch what once touched her.